The truth is, most of us were never taught how to handle conflict in a healthy way. So when tension comes up, we either shut down, we lash out, or we just try to avoid it altogether. But people who have been working on their emotional maturity, they handle it differently. They use simple, honest phrases that keep the conversation from going downhill and that then protect the relationship in the long run. So, in this talk today, I'm going to give you 7 specific examples that you can borrow and start using right away to use when you are in conflict in order to handle it in that more emotionally mature way. But first, if you're new here, welcome to our incredible little corner on the internet. Take a second, introduce yourself in the comment section below. If you are back again, it is always good to have you. And a special shout out to my shifters. You know who you are. My name is Julia Christina, and I am a registered clinical therapist, a researcher, a coach, a speaker, and the author of my book, Drive Your Own Darn Bus. And I help heart-centered humans think better, feel better, have better, and live better so that they can like themselves and their lives more every day. So let's get right into these. Let's look at 7 things that emotionally mature people say in conflict that both help move through the conflict in a better, more healthy and productive way, and also protect and preserve the quality and the connection in the relationship. And also know that emotional maturity is not necessarily this bilateral thing that you either have or don't have. It is on a continuum, and it is one of those things that we learn, that we develop, that we grow into, and that we're always kind of learning and growing and developing more into. And using these phrases is both going to help you respond in a more emotionally mature ways, and it's also going to help you build that emotional maturity muscle because you're going to develop a new awareness about what's happening inside of you in conflict and how to handle yourself and your emotions in that conflict, which has that beautiful feedback loop of developing more of that emotional maturity. So the first thing people say, I'm feeling overwhelmed and I need to take a break before we talk about this more. So why does this work? It actually just prevents you from saying something that you don't mean or something that you regret later in the height of that emotion. By doing this, you are showing the person that you respect them enough to take the time for yourself to regulate, to calm down, to cool down, so that you don't end up saying something that you regret or that hurts or harms the other person in that height of the emotion, which is probably going to be something that you don't actually mean. You're just reacting from the height of that emotion. So this is a sign of respect, not a sign of rejection. The second thing, simply saying, I'm not in the best headspace right now to talk about this. Can we come back to it later? So this is for those times when you're just feeling kind of off. You're already feeling kind of stressed. You might be distracted with something else that's going on in your life, and you just don't have the capacity to talk about it. You're just not in the right place to be able to address something hard, and you know that about yourself. You know that you're already feeling kind of off, maybe about something else that's going on in your life, and dealing with this in this moment is probably going to make things worse. And so just letting that person know that you want to come back to it a little bit later when you're in a better headspace is going to allow you to handle things better. It's going to allow you to have more clarity. It's going to allow you to be able to receive anything that might be difficult to hear from them or feedback or a complaint or whatever that is from them and not already be in this sort of heightened or off state that's going to make things even worse, more than you can handle, which is then probably going to result in you saying something that you don't mean or not handling it in a way that you feel good about or creating more of a bigger issue than the actual issue at hand. By doing this, you're communicating clearly that now is not a good time, but you're also committing to come back to it later. That's different than someone who's just like, I can't talk about this right now. I'm too stressed out, or I've got too much going on, or I'm too busy. And then just leaving the sentence at that. And then the other person's like, okay, well, this is a problem. This is an issue. This is something I want to address. So what do we do about this? Which It might to them feel like you're just dismissing them by just saying, I can't deal with this right now. This is too much for me. And finishing that sentence there makes them probably feel rejected, makes them feel neglected, makes them feel like what they're going through or what they need or what's important to them doesn't matter. But by just simply adding that phrase at the end, can we come back to this when I'm feeling more grounded, when I'm feeling more like myself, when I have more capacity for you and for this? Shows them that you are actually respecting them enough to want to be in a good headspace before you talk about it, and that you care about them enough to want to come back to it later when you are. The third thing that emotionally mature people say when in conflict that you can borrow the next time that you find yourself in a tense conversation is, I don't want to say something that I don't mean or that I'm going to regret. So I need to take a pause and come back to this in a few minutes or a little later. This is one that you can use when in the height of conflict, where you notice yourself getting really activated, really flooded with emotion, and you notice sort of the color red kind of coming up, and you feel like you might say something or act in a way that you are going to regret later. And having that awareness, having that track record to look back on and be like, usually when I continue, when I am feeling like this, it does not go well. And it usually creates hurt, harm, or even damage that I'm going to end up having to go back and do damage control around later on. And it's maybe even going to leave a lasting imprint on the relationship that doesn't need to be there, that I don't want to be there. So I'm going to regulate myself in this moment, and I'm going to set that boundary for myself against lashing out and saying or doing something that this person doesn't deserve, that is not good for the relationship, and that I don't actually want to do. I don't want to be that person. So if I don't want to be that person, then I have to not let myself act in those ways, which means I need to catch it before it happens and have that awareness of myself to do that. This, as I mentioned, is going to protect the relationship from those hurtful or harmful words or actions, and again, is a sign of care and respect for the other person, that boundary that we set for ourselves. The fourth thing, I notice that I'm shutting down, and so I need a little bit of time to regulate myself, to settle myself, and I will come find you when I'm feeling more steady. For some people, when in conflict, they are fighters. They lash out, they yell, they get angry, they get activated, they get upset, they put that energy out. But for some people, when they're feeling activated, they go internal, they shut down, they disassociate, they disconnect, they numb, they repress. And neither of those are good for the sake of working through hard things in relationships. So if you are a shutter downer, let me know in the comment section below if you are someone who tends to shut down in conversations, in hard conversations, intense conversations. We've got our fighters, we've got our flighter freezers, so the people who either, freeze and kind of shut down, or shut down as a form of like getting away from the conversation, fleeing from the conversation. So being able to recognize when that is happening and letting the other person know what is going on with you, and then just saying what you need, that you need a few minutes to reconnect with yourself because you notice yourself disconnecting, disassociating, or shutting down, and you need a few minutes to come back to yourself so that you can keep going, keep working through, keep dealing with whatever the issue is in a responsive, reflective, emotionally mature way. And also, this prevents the other person from thinking that you're stonewalling them. So if you just simply go silent and stop responding and just kind of put almost like a stone wall in front of you, like you are impenetrable, you are inaccessible, you have shut down, you have shut out, and almost like making that person feel like you don't care, you don't value them, you don't want to even engage with them, it's not worth your time or your effort. That's not what you're doing here. You're not stonewalling, and you don't want them to get that impression because, again, that can be really hurtful or harmful to the relationship. So just letting them know, I am shutting down and I need to take some time to get back to feeling more present, more grounded before I can talk about this anymore. So It's a sign of respect, and it also just is a sign of care for the other person, that you love them enough, that you respect them enough, that you value the relationship enough to not leave them feeling like they're dangling out there with no lifeline, with no one who cares, with a partner or a friend or a family member who doesn't even care about how they are feeling or what they are thinking or going through. So instead of your silence feeling like a punishment to them, it's framed as actually a step towards healthier communication. Our fifth one, if you are a yeller, and if when you are pushed too far or you're feeling too overwhelmed with emotion, you default to yelling and you don't want to be the person who yells when in conflict. I personally am someone who does not like to yell and also doesn't like to be yelled at. I shut down pretty quickly when I am being yelled at. And so just being able to catch that within yourself and being able to say, you know what, I'm starting to feel like I might yell, like I might explode, like I might lose it. And I don't want to go there. I don't want to do that. So I need a few minutes to myself. I need a few minutes to cool off and to calm down. And then make sure that you do take that time, take that space, literally remove yourself from the conversation, the situation, or the room before you get tipped over the edge and say something either explosive or exploitive. And this one is actually the epitome of emotional maturity. And it's sometimes one of the hardest ones to catch because sometimes we can start to feel a little bit stressed, a little bit activated, and we can go from maybe like 20 to 80 in half a second where we notice ourselves starting to get tense. And then all of a sudden something happens, something is said, something comes up within us, and then we start to see red, and then we lose that part of our brain, that rational, reasonable, logical part of our brain, and we go straight into the reactive, emotional part of our brain. And so getting better, this is something that we train in ourselves by catching it, by afterwards when we do lose it or yell or say something that we regret, we don't just go into that self-blame and that self-shaming, which just then makes us feel even worse. It doesn't actually help. We go into that self-reflection process and we start to look at, okay, what happened there? And where did I get to the point where it was kind of that point of no return, where I just saw red and lost control of my mouth, lost control of my emotions? Where was that point, and how can I work to catch that sooner? Because this is so much what emotional maturity is all about. It's not about always having perfect emotions, never getting upset, never getting triggered, never having big reactions internally to things, but it's about acknowledging them and catching them before they come out and hurt or harm or negatively impact somebody else. Where we get that awareness within ourselves, we are able to reflect on what's happening and we're able to regulate ourselves, to set the boundaries we need to set, to give ourselves what we need in that moment to be able to deal with our emotions in more healthy, helpful, serving, productive, relationship preserving ways. Our next thing that emotionally mature people say when in conflict that you can borrow for the next time: I disagree with you, but I care about our connection. Can we keep working through this without attacking each other? This is one that comes into play often when two egos are fighting to be right, fighting to win. And if we could take a step back and not look at conflict between someone that you love and yourself as a winner and a loser, but as an issue on the outside of the two of you that you are working collaboratively to figure out, to work through. By doing this, you are showing that disagreement doesn't mean disconnection, and that a healthy respect for each person in the relationship matters more than winning. The next thing that emotionally mature people say when in conflict is one that is kind of this next level of emotionally mature communication. If we have been starting with emotional maturity like 101 so far, this is like emotional maturity 217. And this is just saying clearly and calmly in the conversation, I want to hear your perspective, but I would also like to share mine and for you to hear mine so that we can move forward with more understanding of each other. Can we do that? This is collaboration in action. And the reason why I say this is more advanced is because when we're in the height of the emotion, when we are feeling triggered, when we are in conflict, when we are feeling upset, maybe when we're feeling threatened or vulnerable in a conversation, it's really hard to regulate ourselves. It definitely takes practice and working through those first several that we have talked about already and practicing those first, just our own kind of emotional regulation in the moment, and then getting to that emotional regulation and then being able to say something clearly, calmly, and connection focused in this way when some of those emotions might be running higher. This is what I need. This is what I have to offer. And this is the outcome that I want. I need to feel heard and at least somewhat understood, or that you're making an effort to understand me. And I want to hear and make an effort to understand you so that we can move forward together. By doing this, you are leading the way to make space for both people to feel safe, to feel respected, to feel cared for in this maybe even higher conflict, higher intensity, higher stress conversation. But here's the other thing. Even with some of the best emotionally mature phrases, as I mentioned, it's hard to use them if we're feeling really triggered, if we're feeling really flooded with emotion, if we're feeling anxious or spun out in the moment. And that's why working on staying more emotionally grounded or getting yourself to being more emotionally grounded if you're feeling really triggered is so important. So if this is something that you want to be working on more, I have a free resource for you. It's my quiz. It's called How Emotionally Grounded Are You? And it's going to help you identify how you tend to react in more emotionally charged conversations, interactions, or situations. And then it's going to give you some really simple, straightforward, but helpful tips to help you feel more grounded, to help you feel more regulated, to help you be able to handle situations like this with a more emotional maturity, with more conscious awareness, and with more respect for both the other person and for yourself. The quiz only takes a few minutes. The tips are right there. You can grab it completely free, and the link is for you right there in the description below. Know that conflict is a normal part of any close relationship. Inevitably, when we get close to someone else, they are going to do things or say things or act in ways that tick us off, that annoy us, that rub us the wrong way, that hurt our feelings, that trigger our wounds or our vulnerabilities. But that doesn't mean that the conflict has to hurt, harm, or even destroy the relationship. And the difference isn't between relationships of people that are close to each other that have conflict or that don't. The difference is between the people that handle the conflict in more emotionally mature ways and the people that don't. So these phrases are a great place to start to help you stay honest about how you're feeling or what's coming up for you, while also protecting the relationship, while also giving yourself and the other person a chance to work through the issue in more healthy, helpful, serving, productive, relationship protecting ways. And know also that these are ones that you're going to want to come back to. So you're going to want to save this video to be able to come back to it later, because this is one of those things where you have to repeat it, where you have to intentionally do these over and over again until they start to become ingrained in your brain, until they start to feel more natural, more normal, more automatic. And I guarantee you that with this work, by doing this, becoming more aware, more conscious, more intentional, more grounded, more expressive and honest with your needs and where you're at, it is going to get there over time with practice and repetition. Like anything that we get good at, we practice, we repeat, we get good. So let me know now, which one of these phrases do you think that you are going to try first in your next tense, charged, stressful, or conflicting conversation or interaction? I would love to hear which one are you like, yep, I'm going to try that one first. I can totally see myself using that. That makes sense. That feels doable. I'm going to do it. Let me know in the comments section below. And also, make sure you grab that quiz. How emotionally grounded are you? It's in the description below. It's going to give you some great tips that you can start using right away as well. And until next time, take good care of yourself. Take good care of those around you. Bye for now.